This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, discounted prices, miniaturemarket.com.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today we find ourselves in the Industrial Revolution, where we're going to be building coal plants that produce lots of coal. We'll also be producing iron, and we'll also be producing and trying to sell cotton, and we're going to be trying to sell that cotton through different ports. Now today, we're going to be taking a look at Brass, Lancashire. This is the new reprint of a very popular Martin Wallace designed game called Brass. It is a medium-heavy Euro-style game. It's an economic game. Let me show you how it's played, and I'll see you on the other side. Here's the board for Brass Lancashire. It's a double-sided board. The other side is an advanced side. Over the course of the game, you're going to be creating networks by placing industry tiles down on the board and also connecting them with different networks of both canals and rails throughout the two different eras. The game's played over two halves. The first half is a canal era, where you'll be having boats going down canals, and then the second half, you'll be having trains go down rails, and there's some different things between those two different halves. Each player gets a board, and they'll get a bunch of these tiles and tokens of their color. And they're going to be using these different industry tiles to place on the board and hopefully score points with them later. They'll be using these, as I showed you, to make networks. They're also going to get 30 of the money there, and the money in this version of the game is this really nice, thick poker chip style chips that you can use in other games as well. Every player's going to get some cards, 8 cards to choose from. This is a card-driven game. We're going to be selecting actions and playing cards to do those. Now just a moment here, we have different tiles here. This is the cotton mills that you'll be using to try to sell cotton, ports that you'll be trying to ship through or have other people ship through. Then you have the shipyards, and then you have iron and coal. Those are the different things that you're going to be placing out there possibly and hopefully scoring and raising your income with. Now the game is played in a specific turn order depending on the round, and that will change. And when it's your turn, you're going to take 2 actions, and the game is card driven. So you'll play a card, like this one says Liverpool. This means that I can actually place an industry token into Liverpool, but only one of the ones that's shown there. Now we can put this anchor there, that's a port. And this one, you can see it, all of these start with level 1 in the upper left, and level 2s, 3s, 4s. They go up and they get more expensive, but you have to start at the bottom and work your way up. Although I'll show you a little bit later how you can kind of get rid of things to build a little bit faster. But here's a port. It's going to cost me $6, so we would spend the money into the, to get this, and we'd be able to place this on the board. So here I can just place it in any one of these things here, and then this would get discarded in front of me. Now, notice that there can be some other people putting ports here. In the first half of the game, during the canal, you can only have one of these per area. Now let's say I wanted to maybe possibly connect maybe to this coal that will maybe allow us to connect down to here to the cotton mills, or over here to the cotton later. And notice the first half of the game, that canal area, you can only go on places that you can see at least some water here. So let's say I wanted to build a network here. I want to be able to go here because I've already got something here. This is part of my network. I'm going to try to start building over here, maybe possibly next turn getting some coal going. So in this case, I would just spend $3. I would discard any card that I want out of my hand and into my discard pile in order to take that action, and it would just be the next player's turn, and that's how easy that is. So let's say the next player built this cotton mill here, because let's just say they had this card, they're going to want to try to sell some cotton later, and they started building their network here. And let's say the next player went here and put a coal, and here they put iron, and you'll see there's little cubes on the bottom right. It tells you how many from the supply to put for coal and both iron. We'll show you what those do a little bit later, but you don't always have to play a card to put something there. For example, you could play this card, and this purple player had played this, but sometimes you actually have to build within your network. So this has a cotton mill on it, and sometimes you'll be able to build this where there's cotton mills, but only if you have sort of if it's part of your network, meaning you have industry tiles around it or connected to it or something like that, where you actually have some things. So sometimes you're quite limited as to where you can put things, and other times if you have actually the card, you can put them anywhere that you could actually place that type of a tile there. So there is some different things depending on what cards you have. Now you notice this player did not start with level 1s, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. Now one of the things you can do on your turn is discard a card to take a sell action. This player wants to sell. Now to sell off their cotton mill, it's going to go through, and it can actually connect through other places and through other types of things that are not theirs. So it's going through their boat here to here, and then it's going through this player's boat to this player's port. And so they're going to be able to sell. And so the big way of getting points in this game is to do things that allow you to flip the tile. In the cotton mills, it's to sell. Now what this is going to do is going to get you 5 points at the end of this whole era, which is essentially with 4 players, 8 rounds, but it depends on the amount of players. And you're also going to be able to move your income up 5. So again, each player is going to be taking 2 actions in 1 round, and at the end of the round they're going to get a certain amount of income depending on where this is. So this purple player just went up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up here. So it actually moved up 5 spaces, but it moved up to an income level of 3. So at the end of this round, they're going to get 3 income. So you start building an engine of economics there. Now this player could sell through because it's going to a port, and this player can flip their port here, and they can basically they'll be getting 2 points, but they also get to move their income marker up 3. So you used somebody else's port to sell things. Now, either that turn or in a future turn, other people can still sell through this even though it's flipped because it has this little 2 arrows, which means it's the distant cotton market. So if somebody else had a cotton mill that was connected to this, they could sell through that port. And how that would work is they go through here and they would flip this cotton tile down, which is sort of a randomized set of tiles, and it'll tell you to go down minus a certain amount. So 1, 2, 3, and then that player's gonna be able to go up 2 on their income track, and then the player that sold the cotton is gonna be able to go up as well. But once this gets down to the end here, no one else can sell through that. So it has a little bit of a race aspect to selling cotton through different ways. Now you'll notice earlier I told you one of the players actually skipped one of their coals and went straight for level 2, because one of the things you can do is discard a card and you can develop, which essentially is taking the lowest of any of these 2 different tiles if you want to, and actually remove them completely from the game. And what this does is allows you to sort of leapfrog it to get to better ones that obviously cost more, but they will get you some more points and more income and things like that. This is important too for the end of the era that I'll talk about in just a little bit. So sometimes you'll be developing to remove things like this shipyard. You have to remove both of them before you can even build one, which essentially these things will get you just straight points. I mean, they're going to get you a lot of points when you build them out places, because as soon as you build these, they actually flip over and they'll get you big points there. And this track sort of shows you the different how many points and what the income level and how much it costs. Now you might notice that sometimes the cost is not just money, it's coal or iron or things like that, because sometimes you have to consume coal or iron in order to be able to place the tile in addition to money. And so to build this, we would have to have consumed an iron and a coal. And at first you have to be able to take coal from something that's connected to it, which sometimes is other people's tiles. And that's good for them, because once all these coals are gone, that's when this player scores their coal. At the end of the round, they're going to get points and their income is going to go up a lot. So sometimes you're actually using other players' tiles in order to do things that you want. And the coal, in this case, to take it off tiles has to be connected. The iron does not. So if we need to get rid of an iron, any place that has an iron, you can take it off. And again, if this ever got completely gone, this one will flip over and score. So iron and coal kind of get flipped once they get used, and they can be used by all players. Now there's also a market over here where if you can't consume coal or iron, you can actually consume them from here by spending this. But the other cool thing is when another player then plays a coal or something like that, they're actually able to take the coals that would normally be on here, which is 3, and place them back in the market and make some money off it as well, and it makes it quicker for them to flip. So this fluctuating market actually adds a lot to the strategy. So generally, you're trying to get these industry tiles out and get them flipped. Selling cotton as we showed, having people sell through ports, maybe yourself. These would flip right away when you make them, and these, as if you empty them out, they'll flip over. That's how you score those. Now at the end of the round, once everyone's taken 2 actions, we see who has spent the least amount, and going from least to most, it will reorder the turn order depending on who spent the least to the most. So this would get completely rearranged. By the way, these cool little tokens here are double-sided, so you can be whichever person you want. And I like how they did 2 males and 2 females. Now there's a deck of cards that people will be refilling their hand with as they take the 2 actions, but once you get to the bottom, that's basically going to show you that this round is getting close to an end, the canal era, if you will. And once everyone has pretty much taken their last action or last round, you end up going through scoring and then resetting things up for the next era, or the second era, that rail era. So this is when people will get points of any flipped tiles. Like here would get 2 points and things like that. You'll also get points for connecting things to your boats, like every time you see one of these symbols. So that this player would actually get 2 points for having things connected to their boat there. But here's one of the big things is at the end of the canal era, any tiles that are just level 1 get completely removed. And so it can be kind of brutal if you've only been working on level 1s, or knowing that they're going to be gone, it can change your strategy. Now, if you look at some of these that has the little watermark, these ones can only be built in the canal era, but some of them with the rail mark can only be built, during the rail era. And you can see that, these level 1s, yeah, they're easy to get out, but they go away at the end of the first era. So that develop action we talked about, where you can actually get rid of things, actually helps you leapfrog in order to get the ones that will, cost more, but they'll last longer, and you'll be able to possibly score them twice. For example, if this one ended up getting scored out there in the first round, it's going to score 5 points now and 5 points in that second era, the rail era. So the rail era would actually reset a lot of things. The tiles, the cotton market would reset. As I mentioned, all the level 1 buildings and all of the boats will go away because now people are going to start building rails. To build those rails, it's going to cost 5 to build one and you must consume coal, or you can build 2 of them for $15 and it consumes 2 coals. But also now you can actually have 2 of the same person's industry type token in the same city, where you couldn't do it in the first round. So there's a lot of things that you set yourself up for in the second half of this game, and so things to look for. So that's at a very high level how the game works. You play 2 of these long eras. Whoever has the most points at the end is the winner. All right, well, there is the new version of Brass. Now, I had a chance to check out the original version of this game, and man, was it ugly, especially when putting it next to this. The art in this game is absolutely beautiful. The card art, the board art, all the iconography, everything is really good in this game. Roxley did a great job of giving this thing a much needed facelift. I like that this is an economic/business game. I typically like economic games a lot. I love trying to run businesses and just working with the free market and income and what to do, and you're going against other players in that way. I typically like those styles of game, and I like that aspect of this game. I like that the turn structure is simple. The structure itself, I mean, you're just playing cards and taking 2 actions. That's it. And it goes to the next player. So from an action standpoint, the game is pretty simple, and I like that. Of course, there's a lot of interactions and a lot going on in this game. By the way, when I went over this high-level overview of this game, I did not go over every rule. In fact, I purposely skipped lots of rules just to show you the very 10,000-foot length. Like, I think even when showing the develop, I didn't even say you had to, consume an iron or anything like that. But so lots of things in this game. Anyway, I like that this game has a sort of an arc to it. It has 2 halves. You have the canal era and then the rail era. And then you're setting yourself up, and you got to figure out, okay, what am I going to do here? These level 1s are going to go away at the end. Do I want to spend the resources and things to develop and get rid of these things and go for starting on level 2 so it can possibly score twice? But it takes actions to get there. Maybe I'll get less points from the first half. But if I go with level 2s, then at least they might be able to score in both halves. So I like that there's an arc to the game. I like that it sort of resets a little bit after the first half, and that now the rails open up, and you can actually go and have more than one tile in each thing. So I sort of like the arc of the game. My favorite thing about this game is that the decisions that you make in this affect all other players. This game has a lot of interaction with that way. Like, you got the coal down there and somebody else wants to consume it, and they're going to be helping you out, because if all your coal gets consumed, well, you're going to flip it over and you're going to get points and some income for that. Same for iron, same for connecting the ports. So everything that you do on the board affects other players, and it's what I liked the best about this game. Now let's talk about the things I didn't like. For me, this game, now let me just say this, that typically I'm not a medium-heavy Euro player. However, I have a handful of games that are medium-heavy in my collection that I do like. This one, to me, felt dated. It did feel old to me, just in the mechanisms. And I said that the turns are streamlined, but some of the things in the way things interact, it felt a little clunky to me compared to a lot of the super streamlined Euros that are coming out these days. So it didn't feel quite as smooth as I'd say some of the newer games. Even though, again, it's easy mechanisms on what to do, there is definitely a steep learning curve for the, hey, you can't do that type of thing, where, hey, I'm going to build here. No, you can't. You don't have a network there. Well, I thought I have a network here. I have this. No, you can't do that. Lots of things that you want to do, but then you realize you really can't do it, and you've been kind of planning that for a turn or so. You'll learn after your first 2 or 3 plays, you'll learn those things, but don't go into this on your first game thinking you're going to do any good. I mean, your first game is going to be awful. You're going to do terrible. Just understanding how things work together and all the different hooks work is important, but there is sort of that steeper learning curve of the things that you can't do. This is, just different ways that things sort of hook together. Now, longer games for me, I don't mind them, but for me, they really need to stand out more. The longer it is, the better it has to be to stand out. And for me, this was a 2 to 2.5 hour game. With 4, I'm saying. And for me, it didn't really stand out as much as other games in this length. Now, again, medium heavy Euros aren't my bag, but I have another medium heavy Euro that I really do love from Martin Wallace. It's an older one in 2009 called Automobile. That's slightly less heavy per the BGG weight, but it's in the same, I'd say, medium heavy spot there. And I love that game. That's also an economic game with some historic stuff, and I really love that game. This one just didn't do it for me there. It always comes down to an opportunity cost. What am I not playing to play this? You know, and I think about there was another game that was reprinted earlier this year called Container, the Jumbo Edition from Mercury Games. And that game is an economic game that is streamlined that I felt is amazing. And it is about a 90-minute game. But I feel like, why would I ever play this version of Brass, even though it's beautiful, versus this new version of Container, which I feel like gave me all the fun and all the interaction of all the different players and the business and the economics in a shorter time and in a more streamlined manner that still felt somewhat modern. So for me, this one didn't quite hit the hay. If you like medium heavy Euros and you like tight Euros and you don't mind a lot of the gotchas as you're learning the game, then it's clearly a game that many people like on Board Game Geek. It's just not one that was for me, and that is Brass Lancashire.
This video was sponsored by Miniature Market's Review Corner. The Review Corner features podcasts, video, and written game reviews by gamers for gamers. Miniature Market, the online gaming superstore. Thousands of board games, discounted prices. Check them out at miniaturemarket.com.